Okay. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are joining from. So, thank you for joining today's session, Supercharging Agent with MCP and A2A. We have with us Mr. Wei Yuan. He is a Google developer expert in Google Cloud and also senior engineer manager at Ascenda. So, without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to him. So, welcome, Mr. Wei.
Thanks. Let me share my screen. Yeah, let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining us on this Saturday afternoon or morning and evening from wherever you are. So we're going to be talking about MCP and A2A today. Some communication protocols that will help you in building agents by providing data sources and letting it drive with more context. So this is going to be a great continuation on I think previously the previous speaker, if you all joined the first session on what he did in terms of building agents. All right, so I just want to start off by putting this sentiment forward that I understand that building AI applications, agents in particular, can be a very confusing endeavor. Why? Because you are smacked with all these different terms today, and it's not easy to understand where you can start with or what you should use in what situation. To put a joke out there, some of us with this meme, you might get confused, and hopefully you'll be able to sort your way out of it. Hopefully confused like this, but not like this. I don't know how many of you see this meme around. Okay, just not to be very mean to this influencer as well. I think some of you might have also seen the follow-up news from that, which is I think this influencer was involved in the previous SQ incident where I think there was like this turbulence. I think the flight from Thailand, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Okay, but jokes aside, uh, let's talk about how you can use MCP and A2A. But even before jumping to those, first I want to just touch very briefly, for folks who perhaps if you're not in the last session, what you should use to build agents. And one very good option that's offered by Google today is ADK, Agent Development Kit. Right, so you may or may not know that today is offered in 4 languages. Previously, only Python, Java, and Go, but now actually JavaScript or TypeScript is actually offered. It's a new ADK version for that language, but just note that it's a preview version, so sort of still experimental stage. Certain things may not work as well. If you have something you want to deploy in production, try not to use that. But for something like a hackathon, I think that makes sense. Probably in a few more months, they will release it to GA state. All right. Just one important thing: if you are playing around with ADK, you don't have to install this thing called ADK Web. I know if you search around ADK, they'll tell you about this thing called ADK Web. It's just that web UI that a lot of you might be familiar with when you're playing with the AI agents using ADK. But technically speaking, it's already installed with this other ADK libraries in different languages. Okay, so in terms of creating your agents itself, here's a very quick rundown in terms of what you need to do to create the agent. So most importantly, you need to provide that model, whether it's Gemini or some other model. Of course, if you're using ADK, right, it's provided for by Google, so it's very easy to interface directly with a Gemini model. Another important thing is making sure you add in the tools or what I'll call function calling. So, if you're creating an agent, right, it'll essentially be like, that boilerplate chatbot application where it doesn't know anything. So you need to provide some sort of purpose as well as data source to it. And how you can do that is to use tools or function calling. Callback is another interesting thing that you can put in, built in together with your agents. So for example, if you want to put in some sort of behavior before and after the running of the agents. So for example, you can see over there is the before model callback for rate limiting. All right, but just creating that agent instance itself using ADK code is not sufficient. You also need to link it to the runner. All right, so you can see over here, given the agent that was created before, you have to reference it in that runner instance. So this is created using ADK. And then from there, any input that you get in from your user, you can put in, of course, with your own system instructions, and then send that directly to a runner with your interface with your agent instance. So that allows you to be able to do that sort of interaction from your user directly through your application, and then via ADK towards the model that you select. So this is sort of like the very quick rundown in terms of creating an agent. And again, some of you might already know this. If not, I think this would be kind of useful in terms of just knowing how it works behind the scenes, rather than, I think, most of the boilerplates out there. Okay, so here's the thing. If you are looking at creating agents, just like I mentioned about tools and function calling, you don't just want to create an agent. Like, as I mentioned, it's like just any boilerplate chatbot, whether it's running using Gemini model or any other models out there. You want to add some sort of functionality. To give an example, let's say you are building some sort of AI agent for Shopee. You don't want this Shopee bot to be able to just recite responses that a regular Gemini model would. You want to give it some sort of functionality like search for my products or purchase products. So I think that's very important to actually bake in those functionality into your agent. Okay, and there are a few ways to do that, which we'll explore over here. Okay, so we are not yet at MCP or A2A part, but this is sort of the before MCP or A2A. It's sort of to allow you, there are simpler ways to do it. You can try and do it using these simpler ways, but of course, sometimes the simpler ways are not enough. That's where we go to MCP or A2A. All right, so the default way in ADK, well, you might think about, should I write code? I would recommend not yet. You should run through ADK and find out, if there are any existing tools that help you in terms of getting to a functionality that you want. So for example, these are the list of the different tools, right, that are offered within the native ADK. So for example, if you need, some form of, maybe you just need some, results from Google search that you want to augment within your agent, okay, you can link it to the Google search tool. Or if, let's say, you have your own data stores that you have in Google Cloud, maybe in BigQuery, you can link that to BigQuery and then augment those data points into your agent so that they can be able to offer answers in the best way possible. Okay, so again, if you're using Google Cloud, it's tied in with the ecosystem. Anything that you use via ADK towards Google Cloud, as long as it's offered within the tools, right, you can just interface that very quickly and get the whatever results you want right away from that. Okay, but let's say whatever you want over here, let's say it's not offered over here. For example, let's say I want to be able to get my agent to maybe connect to, I don't know, Figma or something, and use it to create a mock-up of a HTML application, give me the React build of that application itself. Then maybe this one is not sufficient over here, where it doesn't offer that. So what you might want to do instead is to build that functionality to do that. Okay, so this one is just a joke. I forgot to say it, but let's say if building is not enough, some of you might know that, what does not enough mean? In the yesteryear of 2025, it's 6.7. Okay, never mind. Anyway, that joke is a little bit old already. I think nowadays, my younger colleagues cringe when I say 6.7. So sooner or later, I'll take this joke out of my slides. Okay, so let's say the default tools that you use in ADK, those that you don't have to write a single line of code, is not enough, right? Then what you might want to do is to write your own custom tools. So just like I mentioned about Figma, right? So what if I can call some sort of Figma API and get a bunch of all the designs back, or maybe use it to create a screenshot that I can use to fit to my model? So I have to write some sort of code to be able to do that, and then pass maybe that final image into the agent itself. And you can actually achieve that using custom tools. Okay, so here's an example, a simpler example of how you use custom tools to augment your AI agent. So to highlight the custom functionalities you're writing here, right? So over here, what I'm just trying to do is to demonstrate, okay, I'm going to write a few functions that returns a greeting towards the user, okay? And one of it is with a name, and one of it is without a name. If you look into this Python code deeper, right, you'll see that, okay, I'm using some sort of random library that takes in a list of strings and then returns the response back to the user. Of course, sometimes interfacing with the name as well. Okay, and then for the one without name, it's just the same thing but not putting in the name. Okay, so this is just a very simple way of showing, okay, I want some sort of deterministic response in my AI agent linked to some sort of data source. Okay, and over here, I'm writing some code to ensure that it always returns some sort of that response that I want. And then I make sure the agent takes that response and be able to render it in the best way possible for the users. So as you write your custom functionalities, what you do is you link it up to your model over here as part of the tools. This is just now the same as you've seen earlier on for the root agent and runner, right? So over here, you just indicate it as part of the tools or function calling that you have to invoke within your agent. And by doing this, right, you have made your AI agent, right, more than just a default vanilla chatbot, that is powered by Gemini. It can now do something that you want. Okay, it can do more than this. Like this is, the sky's the limit. You can write any sort of code you want within this function itself, as long as you depict what these functions or tools are supposed to do. Okay, so essentially custom functionality that works towards your organization or towards your team, in something that you're looking to build, something intriguing that you want to empower your agent. Okay, but here's the thing. Writing code and getting these tools inside your system itself, it's a choice that you can take. Well, it can be a bit of a laborious process as well, but also one thing being that, let's say you're in a company where you're developing a lot of these different agents. You have, maybe 10 different agent instances you deploy everywhere. And it kind of get a bit of hassle when you have to copy and paste this code across. I mean, you could try and create like some sort of library. But what if, let's say, some people in your team or company decides to use maybe the Java version of ADK, and then you use Python, and then someone use Go. Then maybe someone doesn't even use ADK, they use something else instead. So it becomes a lot more troublesome to sort of centralize this knowledge. It's more problematic, when you have to create this utility, right, to use across all of your agents. So you might start thinking about, I want to decentralize some of these functionalities. Can I make it more reusable, especially across my own code bases, my own agent instances? Okay, and some of you might start thinking, this feels like service-oriented architecture. If you're familiar with developing like scalable applications, right, as well as like microservices talking to each other, which is indeed very much relatable to that when you start exploring the other communication protocols for MCP and A2A. Okay, so we're going to start off with MCP first. What exactly is MCP? I'm sure a lot of you, right, today you would have used, let's say Gemini Client. And I think today, one of the recent themes I've seen in the market is you use some of these tools, you plug it into this other MCP server, and then somehow your Gemini Client or any of your other AI tools, right, has this additional context and it works magically. So going through this, I think you'll be able to better understand, what's the magic behind the scenes, and actually even being able to create this MCP servers yourself, right? If you want to power your own AI tools in a different way. Okay, so for MCP, right, think of it as like they market themselves as this USB-C-like functionality. If you own devices with the USB-C port, right, essentially you can use it for charging. You can use it to connect to, I don't know, like your earphones, your mic, or connect to like, any other devices you're using. Essentially, it allows you to be able to interface, with a myriad of different tools and environments. In the same way, MCP aims to do that. Okay, so just to show you one image that sort of represent that, without MCP, like just now as I mentioned, right, you're writing your own tools, your own functions to be able to connect to each of these different tools out there. Okay, so you need to figure out how the API works and then return it in a format that you want and then tell the agent, all right, read it in this format. But with MCP, right, essentially it follows a very standardized protocol in terms of both the input and output, allowing any of your tools, right, that communicate via MCP to be able to, again, common input output, just a very simple way of being able to communicate with other tools out there. I think that's what makes it so powerful. Like it's not just for AI agents, even for, as I said, the other AI tools you're using in your environment today makes use of this standard to be able to allow itself to extend as far as possible without having to build all this customized wrapper yourself. You just need one person who can create the MCP server for each of these tools, right? And essentially it works out of the box when you're connecting to any of these LLMs or agents that's built out there. Okay, so two important things to mention in terms of, okay, actually there's a bunch of things, but the two main important things I would suggest if you're building your own MCP server: resources and tools. So think of this as like the methods in the HTTP, like that protocol itself, right? You have get methods, you have post methods, you have patch, delete, put. In the same way, resources and tools work something like that. Resources is a bit like the get method, then tools is a bit like post. And using tools, essentially, you can do actually both a write as well as a read action if you want. Okay. And today, using ADK, right, mostly it works for the tools methodology itself. So when you design an MCP server, make sure that the tools work so that it's able to connect with your ADK agent properly. All right. Just to very quickly run down how you can create your own MCP server. Later on, as we run through the lab, you also will see or have the opportunity to run your own MCP server. Okay, so we'll start with this server code first. You'll write as, let's say as a separate repository. I'm using the fast MCP library. Okay, and using this fast MCP library, right, I'm able to just create a very simple function indicating the tool methodology as well as the functionality denoted by these three dots. Essentially, that's the logic you want to write to be able to return, taking some response or taking some input and return, some centralized response back to your agents. Okay, and once you're done with this, you just start up the server. The same as a regular HTTP server. That will allow your external other agents to be able to connect to this MCP server. Okay, and as your external agents or clients or AI tools, right? Okay, what you need to do is just make sure that you have some sort of MCP library that you can use to connect to your MCP server. Okay, so like I said, your Gemini client, you just pass in the MCP URL, it should work out of the box. If you're using an AI agent, like let's say in ADK itself, you need to use the MCP toolset to be able to interface with MCP servers. Okay, and then you make sure you pass in the right connection, params, the right URL, and then initialize your agent using the MCP configuration you're set in here. Okay, so essentially is what's depicted in the screen here. When you create the MCP server, make sure you put in the right configuration in your client side and then interface it in your ADK code when you're creating the agent under the tools configuration. Okay, and with this, right, you're essentially able to create an agent that interfaces with your various MCP server. Okay, and this is if you're creating your own MCP server. You can also interface with other MCP servers that are provided out there. All right, so just to give you more examples of it, if you go to this page on the bottom right-hand side of this screen over here, right, this GitHub repo, MCP Model Context Protocol /servers, you'll see a list of many different MCP SDKs or server implementations that are out there that you can use instead of writing your own MCP server yourself. And here's the thing, it allows you to be able to ramp up very quickly, right, using these tools that are already provided for, rather than you creating, let's say just now I mentioned about Figma, like getting that information for Figma and putting into your agent to create a application mockup, right? Figma itself as an MCP, so you can just interface with their MCP servers right away. So in the same way, you can just use some of these implementations, host it yourself, or if there's a public link, you can just link to that so that you don't have to implement the entire MCP server yourself. Some interesting examples from the MCP server repo that I found, one of it is Google Cloud Run. So if you're a DevOps personnel, you want to have your AI agent being able to help you deploy instances to Cloud Run, the serverless application, you can do that using this MCP server. Okay, or if you're an application developer, you want to allow your agents to send email. Okay, then interface it with the email MCP service here that gives it the functionality to be able to send emails. One wacky MCP server instance that I found is this NASA image one. So again, this is sort of like saying the sky's the limit. You can, technically speaking, put in any sort of tools towards your AI agents, like any sort of data that goes in, and expect it to come out with some sort of response, as long as you have the right data for it. So in this case, if you want to display NASA images of Earth, for example, you can connect to this MCP server to do that. All right, so I decided to just run through the MCP GitHub page and count how many different MCP server implementations are there. You can see 572. So definitely do check it out, when you are looking for additional tools, right, to augment the functionality of your agent. Okay, don't look at building the MCP server yourself first. Of course, if you have to, make use of that fast MCP library I talked about. But if you're able to find, these server implementations, go ahead and use it. Okay, and of course, some of you might be asking, hey, Wei Yuan, I thought 3-4 years ago, we were disputing whether agents can count or not. Strawberry, how many R's are there in strawberry? So yeah, just in case, I just went over to Gemini and asked them, hey, since I'm using Gemini to count over here for me, I just make sure I ask them, make sure they can really count now. Fun fact, behind the scenes, you can actually see that there's this show code over here. So what happens is that Gemini generates code that reads this string, which is strawberry, and then they count the number of R's. So it's an interesting way now they're using to do counting rather than actually for the model doing the counting themselves. Okay. One extra thing to also mention, if you are interfacing an agent with Google Cloud as a whole, the ecosystem itself is also growing in terms of the MCP services that you provide. Manage MCP provision out of the box. A few examples you see over here, BigQuery, going towards Maps, for example. If you have an agent that needs certain information from these different tools, you can connect to them directly. So you don't have to host your own MCP server that connects to BigQuery, for example. This hosted implementations, this MCP server instances are already, within Google Cloud. So you can just get, let's say, an address from them right away to interface directly for agent. Okay, so this makes it much easier when you're trying to retrieve information from these different Google Cloud systems, right? And towards feeding your agents. Okay, so let's say, we have run through MCP, you're building a very powerful single agent. But let's say building that single agent is not enough for you. And you want to have multiple agents, like let's say, as I said just now, right, you have maybe 10 agents in the system. You want one agent to be able to call another agent. And maybe you're trying to create a lifestyle, overall Jarvis Iron Man agent, right, that is able to link to all these small other agents, right, that can do smaller things. What you might want to do is sort of being able to interface them all together. Okay, so that's where we want to look at beyond MCP, allowing agents to communicate with each other directly. One way, the simpler way to do it would be what I will consider local communication with your agents. So if you're using ADK today, right, you can actually you can see the samples that are linked on the top, but essentially, you're able to just create multiple agent instances and then link them to each other. Okay, so it's the same process where you're trying to create this. If you see this box over here, right, this LLM agent on top, essentially you create those agent instances and then you can link that other agents, right, created using the same methodology, but maybe they have just different tools that are passed in, and identify them as sub-agents. Okay, so that's one way of just doing it within ADK. But the problem is that if, let's say, you're using ADK, this means that you need to host multiple agents within the same server. And again, this, going back to earlier teams as mentioned just now, right, you might want to decentralize, have multiple agents in the system running at once. Maybe you have 2 different types of agent calling one sub-agent. So you might want to host these agents in different server instances. So that's where you might want to look at what I would consider as remote communication with the agents, which is using the A2A protocol. Okay, so let's touch a little bit into what A2A is. Essentially different from MCP or complementary to MCP. Both of it, there's some overlaps, but usually, they work in tandem and quite well together. For A2A, it's considered as a protocol for allowing your agents to be able to communicate with other agents. All right, so essentially it should work something like this. You can have an agent, as I mentioned just now, that's connected to all of your different other tools, right, with MCP. But this agent can also be linked to other agents via the A2A protocol. Okay, and typically speaking, you have some sort of master agent that directly interfaces with the other sub-agents that it communicates and gets information from. All right, so how does A2A exactly work? Okay, so first you start with what I consider as the child agent or the sub-agent. you need to implement that sub agent first, and then allow it to be exposed so that you can have some sort of master agent be able to communicate to it. Okay, so from the child agent, right? Firstly, you want to use the A2A SDK, right, to be able to determine its functionalities. Okay, so of course you need to determine the agent skill, use the agent skill module in A2A, and describe what this agent does. Okay, and then from there, create the identity of this agent, right, using the agent card. Okay, so over here you can see that every single skill of this A2A agent must be listed under its identity. Okay, so this is what's going to be used by the other master agents, right, to be able to discover and understand what this agent can do. Okay, they cannot just connect and just call each other without knowing what they can do. Same as MCP just now, right? You kind of have to describe what your MCP server does. In this case, A2A also depicts that you have to describe what your sub agents, their functionalities are. Okay, but this is not the actual implementation of the agent code yet. In the actual implementation of this skill that's mentioned over here, like let's say this chart maker, right? You actually have to write the proper code. So using ADK, since you already have ADK that you can use to create the actual agent functionality. So what you want to do is to be able to use ADK to create the actual agent. Okay, and then from there, right? Let me show you over here. So from there, you want to use the interfacing code, allowing you to connect ADK and A2A together. Okay, so you can see over here, agent card. This is from the previous slide, right? Where I show you create the identity of that agent with the A2A protocol. So you tie that together with a runner, which has the root agent instance that you create over here. Okay, and this is where you look at creating that server instance, right? This A2A server instance that can be communicated with, or from other master agents. Okay, so you can see over here, this is using Starlet over here. Okay, and then from your master agent, right? Let's say you have already used ADK in creating that master agent. All you need to do is to just use the right A2A libraries to be able to communicate with a sub agent. Okay, you can see over here, essentially using A2A, you create that agent instance or sub agent instance that you use to communicate. And then from there, you just call this send message function. So think of it as the master agent itself. When you have the input, you just pass it to this sub agent, and then you wait for some response to come back, and then use that to augment, whatever response you are sending back to the end user. By doing this, right, you can essentially do something as let's say user communicating with a master agent, and then master agent talking to the sub agent communicating, maybe with the MCP services to get whatever data that comes back. So by doing this, right, you can essentially create a web of all these different agents talking to each other and giving back, something really powerful back to the user. I'll show a bit of a demo later on after the workshop, just to give your understanding of how this might work. All right, so I'm not going to stay on this for too long, but this one is like sort of the later on at the end of the workshop, I'll show this again just to give a demo of how it looks like, or rather how, if you mix in A2A MCP, how it would look like as a whole. But essentially, this sample project I built just sort of to explore A2A MCP. Essentially, you can see that I have like some sort of master agent delegator over here that I use to connect with all the other smaller agents that I create. And some of these smaller agents, you can also see, let's say this financial planner agent, it's also connected to some other MCP services that I've also created and hosted myself as well. So this whole thing is run using Docker Compose. If you run it, I believe you'll get like 5, 6, 7. You have like 7 server instances running, and you'll see how this 7 server instances will actually talk to each other when you're like trying to create that agent web outcome. Okay, with this, I hope this exactly explains what MCP and A2A are and why they're useful. And let's go into the actual workshop itself today and figure out how we can use this knowledge for ourselves. All right, so let's do some quick setup. If let's say you have not yet set up, I'll run through this a bit quickly. I think just for the benefit of folks who have already taken some time to set this up before. All right, so if you have not yet set up, please visit this link over here. Let me paste this in the chat so you can directly access it. Give me a moment. Oh, chat isn't available. Okay, never mind. Yeah, just make sure you select this link and visit this link. You should be able to see a browser that looks like this. Okay, so this link is going to be on every single slide. So don't worry about it. If I go to the next slide, you should still be able to see it. Do let me know to slow down. I think with emojis or something like that. If I'm going a bit too fast in this setup. All right, so if you go to this page, you should be able to see something like this. And then if you're not yet signed in, just make sure you sign in with the right account. Some of you might be doing your internships, or maybe you are already working. You might be using your company account. I would generally advise not to use your company account, but use your private account for side projects. In some company instances, they actually would disable some of the Google Workspace tools. So for example, like Google Cloud, you may not want to redeem the credit using those accounts just in case you're not able to use them later. So do try to use your own accounts, unless if you're confident your company account is able to utilize these credits. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right, so if you are able to sign into this page, they should be able to show you this other screen itself in terms of the steps to redeem your credits. So make sure you follow the instructions to access your credits, and then you should be able to get to a page like this. All right, so make sure in this page itself, right, essentially they're asking you to validate your details, like making sure you have that. Well, the coupon code itself is automatically generated. You don't have to worry about changing this, but just make sure that the details are correct, especially your account email. Like I said, if you are on the wrong email, let's say this is your company account, just make sure you change this account email. Was that like on this top right hand side, right? Just make sure you change to the switch to the right email account that you want to use for this lab. Yeah, then, and don't take a screenshot and share your coupon code. All right. So the next part, for legal purposes, I would definitely want to ask you to go and read the terms and conditions. So I won't ask you to, well, I'll ask you to accept and continue, but yeah, just make sure, if you're curious, go and read the terms and conditions, Okay. Now, let me know if you all want me to slow down, but okay, so if you have already done those simple steps mentioned earlier on, now we're going to make sure we create a project, GCP project, that is linked to that these credits you created earlier on. So the main important issue here is that we want to make sure that you use these credits. You don't end up accidentally billing that, let's say, to your credit card. If you're using Google Cloud, currently it might directly bill to your credit card if you're using the wrong Google Cloud project. So let's make sure we do this setup properly. To do that, let's go to this link first, console.cloud.google.com/billing. All right. So if you are in the billing console itself, make sure you have the billing account name over here for the credits you redeemed earlier on. If you don't have this Google Cloud Platform trial billing account, it means that the earlier step, something wasn't done properly. So just go to this link again and try to get your credit set up. All right, so let's say if you already have this trial billing account, then the next step will be very simple. Go to this page, console.cloud.google.com/project create. Okay, so we are going to use this to create a new Google Cloud project for us to run this workshop today. Again, later on during the workshop, let's use this project. Let's not, especially if you have your own side projects, or if you are using a company account, don't select the projects that already has been created, in case that it gets linked to the billing for your other wallets that you have created in Google Cloud. All right, so I trust that you're at this link so far, /project create. So you should see something like this screen over here, where you should be asked to put in your project name. You can select your billing account, and if it's your own account, your private email, right? Usually you don't have organization, so you can ignore this last bit. For some of you, you may not see this drop down for billing account. That's okay. If you don't have this selected, it just means that probably this is your first time you're creating this Google Cloud project. You don't have a wallet that's set up yet, or your credit card that's set up for billing. It's fine. That means it will by default be linked to the credits. Okay, so once you're done with this, make sure if you have the option, select the right billing account. and then click create. Okay, and once you've clicked create, the project is created. Go to this page, console.cloud.google.com/billing/projects. All right. So when you're at this page, right, I want you to make sure that if you see this screen over here, right, like you can see, this is my own project. It's called Try GCP-AI. The billing account over here, right, should have the earlier account that you've seen, Google Cloud Platform. What's it called? Google Cloud Platform Trial Billing Account. Yeah. So this must be the one that's linked over there. If you see something else, like let's say you see your own name there with, I don't know what, a credit card name or whatever, then essentially it might mean that you are not yet fully set up in terms of the right billing account towards your project. So you might end up, pushing the cost to a different card. Just make sure if this is incorrect, I think there's an edit button on the right hand side of the screen. Just make sure you go and change it later on. Okay. Yeah, I think do call if any issues. If not, we're going to be actually going over to try out this workshop. All right. So just to, I think I see a thumbs down. Okay, I'm not sure if you're able to send something in the chat, but yeah, let us know if there's something I can help with. Which part of the setup if you're stuck on.
I'm stuck on the creating a new project part.
Okay, let me rewind. Okay, so step 6. Yeah, this is the link you have to go to. Okay, maybe I'll leave this link up for a bit. console.cloud.google.com/project create. Can we have the link? Okay, let me put this links in the chat. This one is for create. And then for the credits, let me put it in here as well. All right. I think there's one more before, which is this. Okay. This is billing. And then there'll be one more. Check. This is correct. All right. So I've put the links inside. Okay, let me go back to the project creation. Okay, so if you go to the link itself, project create, you should see something like this. Project name, put any name you want. If you select Build with AI, I assure you, I think this likely is already taken up. It must be a unique name that someone else hasn't chosen before. Yeah. Okay, so as I mentioned just now, make sure you have the right billing account here. If you do have the option, this drop down for billing account, it's fine. It's most likely that you have not created a billing account in Google Cloud before. That means it's linked to your credit card. Can I use session to billing account? You can if you want. So using the earlier sessions billing account, as long as you still have the budget over there. If it's not yet exhausted, yeah, feel free to use it. So I'm guessing you probably want to experiment using these different billing accounts, but just note that there's also expiry. I think I looked at the expiry for this billing account. I think you have like half a year. I think this is until August, if I'm not wrong, August of this year. Yeah. Okay. And again, on this part, make sure you go to consolecloud.google.com/billing/projects. This is to make sure your settings are correct. If you click inside, you should be able to see the account you created, the project you created earlier on, and then also seeing the billing account tied to your project. Okay. If this is wrong, do click I think there's like 3 dots at the side of the screen. Do click it, click the edit button, and then just change to a right billing account. If this naming is correct, it's a Google Cloud Platform trial billing, I think it's called trial billing account. Yeah, then should be everything is set. Okay, let's go on to. All right, do let me know if you still need help on this side. I'm going to go to the TLDR.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Go for it.
Yeah, I have a problem with when I check the billing account, it gives me billing is disabled.
Billing is disabled.
Yeah, I don't know
As
why.
in this page, this entire page.
No, the column billing account, it gives me the corresponding billing account. It said billing is disabled.
Is the billing account Google Cloud Platform trial billing account, or is it
It's
something
not
else?
there in the first place.
I see. Okay, then very likely you need to go through these steps again. That means if you run through this step, right, what happens is that you would have that Google Cloud Platform crowd billing account inside your account. That means it's one of the billing options that will appear. If that billing option doesn't happen, but if you have that disabled what do you call it, message, right, it means that by default you don't have any billing accounts yet, or you have a billing account but it's disabled. So this billing account that's created for you, that 5 USD credit, is enabled by default. Yeah. So I
Ah,
believe you have to
okay,
run through
okay.
this process again. Yeah.
Okay. One moment.
Yeah. Okay. I think so. What will help? Okay, let me also. So I think I was about to share the slides in a bit as well. Let me actually hold on. Let me actually share, I think, my slides over here. If I think for those who are still stuck in the earlier steps, do run through it. Like, let me put it over here. Uh, this is on slide 24. So do run through the steps from slide 24. I think for the rest, let me run through from 32 first. I think just to for those who are want to go to a workshop first. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the workshop. So just to give a very quick TRDR for today's workshop itself. So a few things. We've talked about MCP and A2A today. What's going to happen is that over here in this workshop, we're going to try out how MCP and A2A works. Okay, and along with that, we're also going to try out Gemini 2.5 flashlight. But the thing is, if let's say you want to change the code later to point towards 3.0 flash preview, go ahead for it. I know Gemini 3 is out, but that's it. This is still in preview. So a lot of these labs are not yet updated to it. I think the quota itself might also be a bit more limited because of them. Okay, but do try it. I think in your later hackathons, I think your products definitely should be using, or if you want to use 3.0 Pro or Flash, I think that would be perhaps would be more appropriate. Okay, and then from using this lab's knowledge itself, right, you should be able to create that AI agent, right, for you future purposes, whether it's using MCP or A2A. Okay, so this one I already shared the link, but I'm just going to flash this for maybe 10 to 15 seconds for people who want to use their phone, for example, to view the slides while they're running this lab. Okay, let me go on to the next slide. So let's start with the workshop. Okay, the slides are already in the link, so if you need it, do go for it. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So to kick off this entire workshop, I would like to ask for all of you to go to the home page for your Google Cloud Console. You should already have one page looking at your billing just now. So just remove the entire path and go to the home page. All right. And when you're at the home page itself, you should be able to see that on this top part, there's a bunch of these buttons over here. I want you to activate Cloud Shell. Okay, so click this button over here to activate Cloud Shell. Okay. And then once you click this, you should be able to see this bottom part pop up over here. This sort of like terminal interface. Click this button over here that allows you to open a new window. So for those who are still trying to figure out the buttons to go over, I think just to explain what this means, what I'm trying to do over here is to get you all to be able to use the shell or terminal in Google Cloud to be able to run this entire workshop. So we're actually not going to be installing any tools in our local environment today. We're just going to be doing it entirely in Google Cloud using some virtual machine that is there inside their systems. You'll also even be using the code editor that they provide on this console directly. Okay, so you should be able to see, the power of Google Cloud, where you can develop applications in localhost, but localhost here means on their virtual machine, and also being able to edit code directly on their instance. All right, so I trust most of you might have already reached this part. So let's say if you click this, you should be able to see something like this at this point. Okay, so, or rather, if you don't see this, that's fine. You just need to make sure you click these two buttons on the top of the screen, which is sort of a toggle. If you click them, right, and you see them highlighted in blue, right, essentially it means that your code editor for this left-hand one, and then this is the terminal one. So if you click both of them, right, you should be able to see this different code editor and terminal show up on your screen. Okay, so this should result in this screen that you see over here. All right, so later on as we run through the lab, essentially you will be able to use this code editor to be able to look at what is the code that you are running, and then using the terminal to be able to run the commands required to, whether it's like starting the MCP server or deploying the server instance, or running some test script, right, to simulate a A2A agent. Okay, so this is the lab we're going to be running. Go over to this link. I will share this in the chat as well. All right, so go over to this link. This should allow you to run through the workshop. Can anyone send the slides link? Hold on, I will. Let me share it here. Slides. Okay, I think someone shared it. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go over to, okay, let me see. Yeah, so if you can see my screen over here, this is for the workshop. Well, we might run forward ahead like a few steps, but I think if you want to run a different pace, if you want to run through this at your own pace, or later on as you run through a lab, you want to read through instructions, do look through it as well. In this first step itself, mainly it's just explaining the same thing that I've mentioned earlier on MCP, ADK, and A2A. Yeah, so it gives a very brief explanation on it, but I think what I explained so far expands more on this. All right, this is the outcomes as they've shared, being able to test an MCP server that you create, link an agent to this MCP server, deploying the MCP server to a remote instance like Cloud Run, and then simulating the A2A server, right, by connecting to your ADK agent, and then that gets connected to your MCP server. All right, so let's go over to step 2. This is essentially ensuring like this is the entire setup for the workshop. All right, so make sure you run through these steps. A few important commands here. So just now we've already, if you're on step 1 over here, right, we have already opened up the editor and the terminal, right? So run all of these commands in the terminal. All right, okay, so this one we already have the billing enabled, so this one we can skip it. Cloud Shell, we've already opened it and activated it, so this is fine. So in Cloud Shell itself, make sure you run these commands to verify whether you have the right configuration to run this workshop. Okay, so up until this step, gcloud config list project. So once you have the right user account set up, you do this list project, you should be able to see you have the right project configured. If you are not on the right project, just make sure you set the right project parameters in here. If you are wondering where you can get your project ID, right? Okay, let me see if I can show you very quickly where you can get a project ID. Give me one moment. So if you go to the home page, as I shared earlier on, console.cloud.google.com, you should be able to see your ID over there. I'm trying to, okay. So this is the home page itself. If you open up another browser, you go to console.cloud.google.com. If you have this right project, like over here, this is the project name that I created, Gemini Nexus 3. So over here, your project ID itself is listed over here, this one. Okay, so you can just click copy the clipboard, then run it in the command itself. Just to note that your name may not necessarily be the project ID. If it's a duplicate of someone else's name, right, essentially they will generate like a fresh ID for you. All right, going back to the workshop. Okay, and make sure that once you have set in the right parameters over here, run this step to be able to enable the requisite service for running this entire lab. Okay, you see some parts of it is you have to deploy the Cloud Run. You'll be using Cloud Build for doing that deployment process, and then Artifact Registry for creating the image for deploying the Cloud Run. And of course, on top of it, things like AI platform APIs for running the interfacing with the models within ADK. Okay, anyone facing any issues so far in this setup? Do we use the previous session demo to ooh, yeah, I'm not sure on that question. Previous session demo, I'm guessing if you was using the Cloud Shell itself, you can use the previous project as well. Yeah, but just make sure you tie it to the right billing account. After Google G Cloud config this project I have, would you like enable and retry? Yes, do press yes. I think that means certain configurations are not yet put into your shell. So just make sure you do that and then rerun it again. Okay, I've trouble with Cloud Shell recognizing my project. If you're stuck there, do make sure you run. Let me see. Okay, for anyone facing the issue, do run the gcloud off list. And if you still can, like if running off list, right, essentially it doesn't work, right? I think there's like a command you can run to do the off. Let me try and find it. Give me one moment. Okay, let me answer Zinwen's question first. May I know if we do a new project, do we have to go through previous? No, you don't have to. This is a standalone lab. Yeah. Okay, let me try and find the off command. I believe it's this one, gcloud off. Try this, gcloud off login. That's correct, Yan Ling. You need to change to your own project ID. Please don't change to mine, like because I've not added in any of your to my project, so it won't work if you do that. Okay. As I shared just now, if you're wondering where to get your project ID, just go over to console.cloud.google.com. You should see on the homepage your ID should be here. So you can just click copy to clipboard and then just run that within your terminal or Cloud Shell.
Excuse me.
Go for
Yeah,
it.
the link for the lab. Where's the link for the lab so that I can copy the cloud
Hold
services code?
Hold on, let me put the link for the lab. Okay, so this is the full link for the lab.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think most folks have were able to successfully run through these initial steps. So if you are done on number 2, right, let's go to page 3. All right. So over here, we're gonna start pulling some of the code into your shell environment and setting up things like the environment. This environment variables for running your project. Okay. So make sure you just run through these instructions. Run through this step by step, and by the end, right, do use the code editor to find out if you have the .env file. Okay, let me answer the question in the chat as well. Gcloud config set only this line. You don't have to change it, but you need to make sure you run the export project ID equals and then put in your project ID over there. So you need to run this before running this second command. Yeah. If not, if the environment variable is not set, then it won't work. Okay, so hope most folks were able to clone this repository within the Cloud Shell. Okay, I believe you don't have to install UV actually. Let me double check. I believe UV is already, if you do a witch UV, actually let me share my terminal with you all. So you all can see over here, I do have a similar setup as all of you. Yeah, so you can see.
Sir, I received an error after putting in my project ID.
What was the error you see?
I've already changed the project ID to my ID, but it says syntax error near unexpected token new line, and then it says error gcloud.config.set. I have no idea what's wrong with that.
Maybe word of advice for that. Let me see. Well, config set. Yeah, I would say maybe instead of doing it with the variable, maybe try and just run it as this. Like for me, I would essentially what's this nexus 3. Yeah, don't use the environment variable. Yeah, I guess that's part of the steps as well. But you can also do this lah. If you call this directly, you should hold on. Let me see. Okay, yeah. Try and just run like I think what you see in the screen instead over here. Yeah, like don't use the environment variable lah. Okay. For other folks who have already got past this portion, okay, let me go back to the lab itself. So hopefully for most folks, you have already finished this portion over here. So just for those who are done with that, right? Just to say very quickly, on the top over here in your code editor, you can also click the file option, like like if let's say you're using like anti-gravity or visual code, you can actually do the same thing where you open a folder, you find whatever app is in here, you open it, and then sort of see your code in this environment. Yeah, so you can see over here, I already opened up my folder over here. If I go to my env folder, you can see this is what was created using those instructions earlier on. Okay, so make sure that, just explore this a little bit. Make sure you can find this env file over here. Later on, as you run the lab, you would be able to explore some of these code files here directly. Okay, all right, let's go to number 4. Okay, but before I go to number 4 itself, like I'll give you a few minutes to run it, but so essentially, okay, let's go to this milestone 4. So this is essentially, we're reaching step 4, which is the running of instructions, running some code and seeing some of this MCP server deployment instructions or interfacing with A2A, how it works over here. All right, so creating an MCP server instance, here's the thing, you're going to be running through this step, you should get an outcome like this, okay? So this one should be fairly simple. Make sure you create 2 terminal instance over here so that you don't have to, I think with 2 terminals, you can use one to run the server and one to run this test script to check your MCP server if it's up or not. Syntax error, oh, let me see. Okay, so do run through these steps over here and make sure you're able to get the MCP server instance up. This part, okay, you can read this MCP server code if you want. For now, I'll say you can skip this first, like get the server running first, then go back to read these instructions later on. So one way to do this, for those who are faster, you do go ahead and try and run this yourself. But those, if you're stuck, right, one way I would advise you is, okay, so this first command is to run the MCP server. So copy this first, okay, and then let's say if you go to your environment over here, okay, so as I suggested, right, use one terminal to run this command, okay. So let's wait for you to run. Okay, so you can see over here, this server instance is running. If you want to play around with this localhost, right, of course, please don't try to go to localhost 8080. It will not work. But if you click directly from this terminal itself, you should see a new browser tab open up where you can actually try and talk to this web server that has been brought up. Of course, in this MCP server, the default route is not served, so you should find something like not found. Okay, but once you have this, that means it shows that your MCP server is up. Open a new Cloud Shell, okay, and then again going over to the currency agent itself, you want to copy and paste the next command inside this milestone 4 inside this lab, so which is uv run MCP server /test server.py. All right, so it should look something like this. Okay, and you should get this outcome. Okay, so for those who have already got to this part, I think one thing I would advise or suggest you to do is, okay, then let's step backwards to see what the code was actually doing. Like just now in this step 4, right? They actually show you a list of code, and then try and understand what they are trying to get you to do here. Okay, so I'll maybe stay here for around 1 minute before I go back to the slides. Okay, why when I already clone the repo, it doesn't show the file on the code editor? Okay. So here's the thing. You actually have to go over to this code editor and then click open folder and then open the folder directly. So it doesn't automatically show up. You still have to indicate which folder you want to open, sort of like your local IDE. Yeah. Of course, do make sure it's there in your local environment, like in the terminal. If the folder is not even there or the code repo is not there in your terminal, that means maybe the cloning didn't happen, wasn't done properly. All right, for the rest, for those who are already done,
Excuse me.
go for it.
Yeah, I have a problem with when I ran the MCP server, but because in the next step it said in a new terminal window, I ran the code and it gives me that it's not there is no such file or directory when I opened a new terminal.
So are you in the currency agent folder?
No, I'm in the root file.
Okay, go over to the currency agent folder first. So you need to run this run MCP server test server.py in the currency agent folder. So just run cd. So run this one, cd currency agent.
CD currency.
So you need to change directory to the currency agent directory first, then run this command. Right. So for the folks who are reading the code over here, you can see that they're using the author of this repo used the fast MCP library to be able to create their own MCP server tools. Okay, and over here, right, they created this custom tool where you can see over here, so it's called get exchange rate, and then they link it over to to this one. There's this API call over here. So they make this API call from the inputs of the currency from and to, and then based on the response, they send it back to your agent that's linked to this MCP server. Okay, so it's as simple as that. And this other command that you run, the second terminal one, is actually sort of like simulating an AI agent, but it's actually just a simple script that talks to MCP servers and try and get some response, like by passing in some instructions directly. Okay.
Hello.
What's up?
When I run the UV run MCP server, I got error like runtime error, client failed to connect, all the connection attempts to fail.
Can I check if you have this first terminal with the server running? If the server currently isn't running, then
I think I missed this part.
Okay.
Can you show again what should be run?
Okay, so from the first first terminal, run this command: uv run mcp server.py. Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna go back to my Cloud Shell. So it should be something like this. So you have two terminal instances, or at least like one terminal first, right? So from the first terminal, just run. Let me reconnect here. From this first terminal over here, just make sure you run this command, uv run server.py. Okay, let me scroll back up, which is this one. So if you run this properly, you would be able to start this server on port 8080. And once you've done that, just click this plus button to open a new tab, and then go to this second tab and run that second command. Where can I download my UV dependencies? In Cloud Shell? Or do it in Cloud Shell. Don't do it in your local environment. Like if you do it in your local environment, right, your terminal, it installs the dependencies in your laptop or in your desktop. Here we're using the Cloud Shell, which is, think of it as like a virtual machine in Google Cloud somewhere. Okay, so we sort of keep our environment clean, but use the server resources provided for by Google Cloud. Can I show again terminal 1? Sure. Yeah. Okay. So actually, yeah, there's nothing. Oh, there's a lot of connection issues. Okay, but here there isn't anything special. Like I'm just running this command. Recording. Okay, this one I think we have to ask the organizers, but I believe the previous lab, this is also being recorded, and I believe the last one was uploaded in YouTube. I'll leave the organizers to explain this later. For folks who are getting the error, fail to spawn MCP server, server.py, that's a UV related what's that, error, if I'm not wrong. Okay, let me try and simulate it. I believe you're getting something like, yeah, okay. So the problem here is that you're not in the right folder. So just make sure you go to, after you clone the GitHub repo for currency agent, just make sure you run the command cd currency agent. Okay. And then make sure you see this blue text over here indicating what folder you're in, which is currency agent. And then you run the command indicated in the lab. Okay. There's an ask to show the second terminal. The second terminal itself, yeah, same thing as well. Just make sure you're in the right folder. Change directory to currency agent directory, and then just run this command.
Hello, I have a question. Is that okay?
Go for it.
Okay. I tried to install the UV, as you said, in the Cloud Shell terminal.
Yep.
But it couldn't read the command. Like all the command I tried to put, like copy paste, it says like command not found.
Okay, wait, let me. Okay, I think there's some folks inside the chat also sort of asking about that. Let me just put one command into, I think for folks who are stuck on the UV step, right, run this command, which UV, and then see if you get something from there. If you already have that in your shell, in your Cloud Shell, you don't have to install UV at all. Yeah, I believe this is already installed by default, if I'm not wrong. Okay, let me answer another question. Bash cd currency agent. Okay, so I think, yeah, there's a question on no such file or directory. Mine show this. I think there's a typo. Your currency agent, I think you're missing an N in the currency, like currency. Okay, so if you run bridge UV, you have that, then that's okay. Then just go ahead and use that UV. You don't have to install UV from scratch. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides just to share a little bit more info. I think for folks who are still stuck on 4, we'll try and run through it. The recording is also there, so later on, if you miss out some of these steps, I believe you'll be able to catch up from there as well. Okay, so from 4, let me explain a few things of what we did over here. So when you run this, right, it looks like, oh, everything seems to be running fine, but we don't exactly know what we just did. We just ran a few commands here and there. Well, what exactly happened was that the first terminal itself, you used that to run your MCP server. The MCP server was connected to some currency API. The second terminal, you run a script that actually talks to this MCP server and then sends some sort of request, right, that gives back the response as you see over here. And if you look at the test script, right, very likely it's talking about converting between USD and euros. Okay, so which is shown in this screen over here. The left side, MCP server, you can find that in your code editor in this path over here. And that's what's being used to connect to a currency server, as already mentioned. Okay, let me just skip this. But the test script is the one that does the output, right, as you see in the second terminal. So that's the interesting part where you see some of these outputs mentioned over here. Okay, so this is the script on this right-hand side of the screen is to simulate the agent talking to that MCP server and being able to get that results. And if you're interfacing with an agent, let's say created using ADK, you should be able to get the agent to respond with the actual results rather than this JSON that you've seen on your screen right now. Okay, so that's essentially this step number 4 on how exactly it works. Okay, so something like this, but as I said, you likely want to connect your MCP server to some AI agent instead. But over here, we're just testing using a regular script. Okay, let's move on to the step 5. I think for folks who have completed 4. Okay, I think there are a few comments in terms of the run MC that fail to spawn. Just make sure you're in the right directory. If you're in the root directory, it's not correct. Go to the currency agent directory. Like if you do an LS, you should find a list of directory in the system. You need to go to the clone directory that you created from earlier on. Okay, but let me just touch on 5 first, because I think for some folks who are already over 4, 5 might take a little bit of time to go through since there's a deployment to Cloud Run needed. Okay, so we're going to run through the steps. I'll come back to the slides in a bit, but let's go to step 5 first. Okay, so in step 5, right, here what they're trying to tell you is, well, you run your MCP server locally. Now we want you to run this in Cloud Run. Okay, so you're sort of calling the MCP server now remotely rather than locally. Okay, so in the currency agent folder, right, or directory, right, now go into the MCP server directory. So you need to do a CD MCP server. Okay, you're not in the currency agent folder, you're now in currency agent /MCP server. Okay, and from there, right, run this command. Basically, gcloud run deploy MCP server. You're just trying to deploy this server instance itself. Okay, and once it's deployed, you should be able to see a success result like this. Okay, I think someone is asking where we can get this lab. Let me put the link in again. Okay, so for folks who are running this deployment step, it might take a little bit for this step to run. But if it's successful, if you run it properly, you should be able to see something like this on my screen over here. Okay, so do try to run this step. You'll run through this entire build process, running through cloud build, and then creating, I think, the artifact, putting an artifact registry, and then doing the deployment. Most of what I said is just how Google Cloud works. If you're not sure like what the instructions mention on artifact registry, it's fine. But just make sure you get the success outcome at the end of it where you deploy to Cloud Run. Essentially, that's what you need to understand if the serverless instance is there running your MCP server. Okay, so you're trying to move your local instance into that remote instance. Can we use the same MCP server for multiple agents? You can. I think that's the strength of like using this communication protocols, like for MCP and even A2A later. Because like, let's say just like I mentioned, using the Figma MCP example, right? That's what Figma hosts on their server instance. And they let any users out there connect, let's say your Gemini client to Figma to be able to use your local Gemini client instance, right? To be able to get information for Figma. The same concept applies to your own MCP servers as well as any MCP server out there. Okay, when I run the ADK agent on... Oh, okay. I have seen this issue before. Okay, let me paste a command that hopefully will be able to help you out here. So, Jiaqian, do try running this command. Yeah, don't paste the output here. Like I think there's some credentials thing that will appear, but try running this and basically be able to get ADC inside your instance. Okay, there is like I think a permission. Someone is asking about permission. If you have permission issues, do run through step 2 again. Make sure you run through this. If you did not enable the right permissions, you will get that permission issue. Yeah. When an agent fail to respond, what if any agent fail to respond while waiting for another agent in response? I believe what you're saying here is if whether using A2A or MCP, if there's a timeout, I think if there's a timeout, it depends on how you what fallback you use within that main agent itself. Like for example, if you write a tool, there's some sort of fallback, you catch it, you return some sort of field error response. It's up to you how you want to code it, essentially, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay. The next one, failed to spawn error. Make sure you're in the right folder. Do make sure you're in the currency agent folder, not in the root directory. Okay, after step 5, the project resource is not properly specified. Please specify the argument project. Okay, for this one, hold on, okay, looking at the command, they actually don't indicate what project you are deploying to. But I think likely for Yanling, I think the issue you're facing is that the terminal you're using, your project is not set yet. So do run the command to set your project. Let me just give you that command very quickly. Gcloud fix project. Okay, so this one is the one I used in another workshop. Make sure you change, so I put it out here. Gcloud config set project ctjs build, right? Remove the ctjs build into your project ID instead. Yeah, Yannick. So by doing that, you should be able to rerun Gcloud run deploy and get the success outcome. On step 3, do I copy the whole MCPs? No, you do not have to. Liam, the code is already cloned there. You just need to run the UV commands to be able to run the server. Okay, yeah, I think for Windsor it's the same thing as well. Okay, so I hope for most folks you all have already gotten, anyone has gotten the server, Cloud Run server deployed? Any successful? Oh, right, nice, Ivana. Anyone else who managed to successfully? Nice. That's great. So if you have already successfully deployed the server, right? Okay, so the next few steps, as you see in the screen over here, one advice I'll give is open a third terminal. Okay, I know we're opening quite a lot of terminals, but open a third terminal, or if you have a free terminal, use that to run this command, gcloud run services proxy MCP server. Okay, so essentially this command, right, to quickly explain what it does. Okay, so if you try and connect to the Cloud Run instance, some of you might have already tested this, and you'll see that, oh, you get a forbidden error. Okay, so the idea here is that you're supposed to run this command to connect to any instances, in this case, the Cloud Run instance, for your server, because we have essentially not allowed anyone to access it on the web. Unauthenticated is not allowed. So you need to run this proxy, right, from your virtual machine over to that Cloud Run instance. So do run this command in a separate terminal and just leave it there. You don't have to do anything about it. Like once you run this command, if it's successful, you can just leave it there. Okay, let me look at the questions. When running Cloud Run service, I got this output. Okay. For folks who get the error on what's that? Localhost 8080 bind address already in use. What you need to do, hold on, let me show you in the cloud environment. So I think what's happening is that you have this server running, and what does it keep getting disconnected? Okay, yeah, if you have this server running, and then I believe what you are doing here is that you are running this. So I believe you get the error. Let me just see. Oh, okay, here I have not set the project. Hold on. Okay, this one, don't worry about it. this new shell instance did not have my project set up. So let me just rerun this again. Double check if it's correct. Okay, so let me rerun that proxy command to simulate the same error that some of you face. Okay, so I think this is the issue that some of you are facing. So if you get this problem, it's because you have that first terminal that's running this server over here. So just make sure you press Control C, right? Just stop the server and then go to that second instance. Go to the second instance and run the proxy again. So because it's trying to run the proxy at port 8080, if your other server is running and linked to binding to port 8080, this proxy command won't work. Okay, so just turn off that initial server since we're not going to be running the MCP server locally anymore. We're trying to connect to a remote server. So port 8080 should be directly, you shouldn't be serving it locally. You should be using a proxy to call the remote instance via port 8080. Okay, okay, so I think there's a few questions on the same thing. Project, okay, like, that is an interesting log from Africa. If you can share, wait, like, was there a command that caused that? I think very likely if you need to run through step number 2 and step number 3 of the workshop again, just to make sure you set up your Cloud Shell properly. I think that probably one of it was missed. That's why it's asking, is giving the output. Yeah. There's a question on running in Docker container. Do we need to do port forward? You're not running a Docker container from your local instance. You already deployed to Cloud Run and you're trying to proxy directly to the cloud instance. So you don't have to do any port forwarding commands here. A sync IO not defined. For a sync IO not defined, that is a very weird error. Can you try cloning your repository again? And then in a different folder. Like, it could be something wrong with that initial clone that you did. Another thing that, okay, for the person that's stuck for the async IO not defined, right? I think one thing that also is asked over here is making sure you have Python 3.10. If let's say this is not set up, just make sure you search online for the instructions to install the right Python version. Most of the Cloud Shell itself should already be defined with the, I believe it's like, hold on, let me check from my Python version. Because I didn't change anything on my side. I think it should be the same version as most of you. Yeah, I get 3.12. So possibly you're running on maybe an older Python version. I think that's why you might be getting that async IO not defined. Yeah, so check whether you are running the right Python version and install a newer version if, let's say, you get those issues. Okay, I hope for the other folks, you are already at the close to the end of step 5 in terms of being able to do that proxy. Okay, and then let's try and run that. So I think most of you would have already run this test server command and you got the same output again, which is good. But what this shows is that you are now not connecting to a local instance. You have connected to the proxy instance and getting the results. So your MCP server now is not local, it's remote. Okay, and just now someone gave that very good question, right? Can I have multiple agents talking to the MCP server? Yes, you can do that. In fact, now if you share access to your remote MCP server and you let someone else run the same test script, they should be able to get the same results. So that's the power of having the MCP server instance. Having multiple agents use the same data source. The examples I mentioned just now, I have Shopee, one database of all these products. What if I have like multiple agents that wants to use this single product database? You can do that. I think that's the advantage of having this MCP server instance. Okay, so let's say you have already got to this step. Okay, let's go to step number 6 for folks who are ahead. I know some folks, you still have some problems. I'll come back to that in a bit. But folks who are done on step 5, let's go to step 6 first. So here, what we are trying to do is, like, so far we have a MCP server. You deploy that MCP server to a remote instance already. Now we're going to use ADK to create an agent and use that to talk to this MCP server. Okay, so here you don't have to copy any of this code into the terminal. It's already there in the code repo, but you can find this code inside agent.py, inside the currency agent folder. All right, so what I'll ask is run this command first to start the ADK web application so that you can interact with this agent that's created over here. Okay, so run this first, and then you should be able to go to the localhost 8080 to be able to interact with agents. But remember, as I said just now, don't input this directly. Okay, let me show you an example of what I mean. So, okay, if I come over here, right. Okay, let me also set my project properly here. Oh, okay, this is fine. So what we want to do, hold on, let me copy and paste the command. So UV run ADK web. Okay. So as I said, don't go to localhost 8080, yeah, but okay, let's wait for you to run first. It should give you a command to be able to access directly from should be able to access directly from here. So if you see UVCon running on this link, okay, press Ctrl+C to quit. Don't press Ctrl+C, but just click this directly. Okay, and you should be able to have a new browser tab opening up that shows something like this. Okay, so over here you can select currency agent and you can ask it the template question that's mentioned. Okay, let me look at the questions just to help folks. Okay, I think Yan Ling, you mentioned about gcloud config set project. May I ask do I need to replace project? So Yan Ling, I think what you should do is go to the home page of the console. So okay, let me paste this link here. Go to console.cloud.google.com. There should be your project ID over there. Copy the project ID and then put it behind that gcloud config set project command and then run that in your terminal again, just to set it properly. Okay. For other folks who are already on step, who are already on step 6, again, yeah, you should have this ADK web. Just try and chat with your currency agent. Like, I think the default query is this, but let me try something a little bit more spicy. So I have some family in Malaysia as well, and I think the one thing that some folks talk about is ringgit to Japanese yen. You know how this is a good time to go to Japan. So let's see. Is it? Oh, okay. So I have some issues with this. Okay, if you get that problem, don't worry about it. Let me just share with you a command to solve this. This is basically your ADC is not working properly, application default credentials. All right, so I'm going to run a command to solve this. If anyone has this issue, please let me know. I will share with you what's the step to solve for it.
I have the same issue.
Okay. Give me a moment. Let me share with you the command. Give me one moment. Let me just try and fix it on my side first. Okay, I'll just double check and make sure it works for me first. One moment. Okay, I think earlier on I share a command. Try and run this command. Let me paste it in the chat again. This one. So if you're facing this ADC issue, just run this command. Gcloud off. Okay, turn off your ADK server first. Run this command in the same terminal that you want to run your this ADK web. Run through the steps. Okay, and then once you get the ADC set up, we run that command to start the ADK web, UV run ADK web. Okay, so let me show you the end output that should work. I'll refresh this page again. Okay, so this one is fine. Let me test again and make sure this works. Okay, so what is bring it to the end? Okay, should work this time around. Once you set up the right ADC, this should work. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, the rates are pretty good, actually. I believe, yeah. The Asian currency is getting very strong nowadays. Is there any way to read the thinking tokens of the model? Okay, to answer that question, what I would say is, okay, let me just show something very quickly. I think for the question that's being asked from the audience. Okay, so one thing I would suggest is, hold on, let me try and find this agent.py. This one. So to that question itself, what I would suggest is, let me see, what's a good way for me to explain this. Okay, this one, I think different from the Google Gen AI SDK. The Google Gen AI SDK, typically speaking, when you call the request methods, they usually will give you the responses with the tokens, amount of tokens that's being used. This one, maybe let me get back later in terms of figuring out the tokens or quota being used here. But the one way I'll say is, if you're looking at tokens as a whole, probably going from the Cloud Console is one way to figure out. But I think if you look at the SDK documentation, you should be able to find documentation on how to understand how many tokens are being used. Yeah. Okay, someone mentioned you did not show how you solve the error. Okay, so let me paste the command again. So this one is the one I mentioned earlier on. Run this command in the console, in the terminal. Okay, run through the steps to add in the ADC, which is application default credentials, into your application, and then rerun the server again. That should solve this problem. Missing key in if you're getting the error on API key, actually you shouldn't get the error on API key as long as you have the permission set up. Do run through step 2 of the lab, rerun the permissions command. I think one of it might have been missed from earlier on. And yeah, if you're running that and also running your terminal over here in the right project, you should not need to use the API key. You should just use your credentials directly.
Hello, I have a very basic question. Is it okay?
Go for it.
Okay. While creating, step 1 now in creating a local MCP server, it says that the file is not found. Like the terminal says the file not found. So how do I save the file? Someone said it's have to check the working directory, and my working directory says currency agent only, like readme cloud shell.txt.
Okay, wait, let me just double check something. Are you inside this currency agent directory? This one is still in the screen. Okay.
Yeah.
You see, file not found. Can you paste that message in the chat? Let me just take a look very quickly. To Farin, okay, you don't need an API key in the env file. Just mention that. But if you don't have a .env file, that might be why it's not working. It could be why it's not working. Yeah. For Gabriel, yeah, if you want to put it in the chat, I can take a look in a bit just to try and help you out there. Okay, for other folks who are done with step 6, so hopefully you have already run through, let me get back to the workshop. If I've run through step 6, you have successfully deployed the MCP instance, you have run your local server, which is running ADK web, which is to sort of have that local agent instance running, and it's connected to the MCP instance. So that's where, just now as you saw, right, I was able to get my agent to talk to the MCP server for currency and understand Malaysian ringgit right now, how much of it converts to Japanese yen, which is pretty good rates at this point. Okay, next let's go to step 7. But let me look at the chat really quickly. For Wunsa, the message over there, try and run pwd, this command over here, and see if you're in the currency agent folder. If you're not inside, it's very likely why you are facing the issue right now. Such file directory. If you're in the right folder already, maybe what I'll suggest is going back to the root directory, just clone the repository again and go to the new folder and try it. Maybe something was accidentally deleted just now. For Farin, you don't have to put the API key. If you are in the right project, you set up the right project, you should not need the API key. I would suggest like try and run through the setup steps again at the start. For most folks here, they're not using an API key right now. Okay, let's go very quickly to step 7 because we are a little bit over time already. I want to make sure I get to at least step 8 today, which is the whole lab. So step 7 itself, A2A protocol over here. All right, so this is the same screenshot you all saw just now. Here, this one, the entire of 7 actually is just explaining to you what A2A does. You can read it later at your own time. They also talk about agent skills and the identity, which is agent card as mentioned just now. So sort of the same information we already ran through. So if you want to read it again to understand how A2A works, you can go through it again. If not, you can just jump directly to step 8. Okay, so step 8, we're almost at the final step already. Okay, so here, what we are going to do is that we are going to, hold on, let me go to this step over here. So now what we want to do is to run this A2A server instance. Okay, to show very quickly on the slides what's going on. So essentially, we're trying to do something like this. Okay, so previously we already set up this MCP server remote instance. It's talking to some external API which we have no control over. This is the Frankfurter API. And then you have your AI agent running via ADK in your localhost. Now we are going to run another test script that will communicate via to your ADK agent via A2A. Okay, so that's what's being done on this step number 8. All right. So do run through this step number 8 over here. Okay, so this command over here in a third terminal. Okay, so this is where, as mentioned, you need a 3 terminals running at this point. Okay, and if it's successful, okay, when you run this test client code, you should be able to see this response coming out. Okay, so when you're running your ADK agent being exposed via A2A, and then this script itself, as shown in the earlier image, right, is sort of simulating another agent calling this ADK agent via A2A. Right, so I'm going to run through the steps with y'all. Let me just show y'all how I'm doing it. So let me copy this one command here. Let me go to my Cloud Shell. All right, I have, okay, so I'm going to stop this server instance. Okay, and then I'm going to run this command. Okay, I'm going to leave the proxy up. Please leave the proxy there. You still need the connection to your MCP instance. Okay, and then I have a third shell over here. Okay, so the project's not set here, but this is fine because this third, the command I'm going to run doesn't need any credentials. So this is essentially me just running the test client script. Okay, so make sure you're in the currency agent folder and then run this final command that is given to you in the steps. Okay. All right, you should see. Okay, so it's gonna take a while. Okay, so you should see some sort of response over here. Let me just make this a bit smaller so you can kind of see everything here. Yeah, so you get connection successful, request goes in, response comes back. Yep. Yep, so you should get some sort of success case like this. Okay, I'm gonna suspect some of you are gonna get a issue soon that I also got when I ran this the first time. But let me know. Like, I think some of you might get this timeout issue. Let me know if you get a timeout issue.
I have a runtime error.
Okay, let me. Oh, no timeout issue. Okay. For folks who are not getting a timeout issue, that's interesting.
I have a runtime error.
Okay, so is it this? Okay, wait, no, this is not. You have a runtime error. Can you paste maybe that in the slides? Sorry, not in the slides, in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. For those who get timeout issue, okay, this one I think is quite common. If you get a timeout issue, you see on my screen over here, add in these 2 lines of code. Hold on. Okay. I'll copy and paste the code for y'all for those who are facing the problem. So I faced this as well. The default repo doesn't actually solve for that. So it's a bit of a problem. So you need to go to your test client.py and change to these 2 lines of code on line 126, as you see in the screen. Yeah, this one. So just set a custom timeout at a much more longer timeout so that it doesn't get into the timeout error. Okay, Kyrie has this question. I'm running A2A server using, okay, yes, the command is all right. .405 method not allowed. I am guessing maybe this one is something related to your MCP server not set up properly yet. Maybe that's why it's not connecting directly. Like, I think that's the response from your A2A agent, right? Not the client, not your test script. Yeah. So do try and run through that steps and make sure you can get it done properly. Okay, I think the runtime error. This is interesting. Attempted to exceed cancel scope. What? Okay, so this is Python 3.12.
Should I close the agent web page, or
yeah, you need to close that. So you need to stop that server first, then run the new A2A command. Yeah.
okay,
Try that first and see if it works. Yeah. Guessing it might be
give it a
that.
try.
Okay. I think earlier on, Jia Qian, I think you were asking a question. Today's quest, do we create our own custom MCP server or using existing MCP servers?
Yeah, it's the same error. Wait a second.
For Jia Qian, sorry, just to answer Jia Qian's question first. Today's workshop is mainly to understand how MCP and A2A works. So you can use this in your later hackathon or your other projects when you're trying to create your own MCP servers, tying towards your agent, like let's say if you have any custom tools, or if later on, like as I mentioned just now, right, you don't necessarily have to create your own MCP server. So if you have an external, like BigQuery MCP server that you want to tie to your agent, you can do that. You don't have to host your own MCP server. But if you have your own MCP server tied to your own custom functionality, you can also host your own MCP server for augmenting the functionalities of your AI agent. A2A, as shown in this last step, right, is to allow you to be able to have one agent communicate with another agent. And let's say if you have like 5 other child agents set up, you can use one agent to communicate with multiple agents. Okay, so I think we are kind of over time. So I want to make sure I tie up this entire workshop first. And then for folks who have more questions, maybe we can also stay behind a bit to help answer more questions. All right, so let me go to, so I just want to do a very quick demo in terms of MCP and A2A. I think just to show a little bit more of the functionalities, like why is this useful? How can we put this all together and get it working for our own projects? So you can see over here that this is the sort of the demo project I showed just now. You can go to this link if you want to try it out yourself in terms of having multiple agents talking to each other via A2A and MCP. So let me give you a few examples in terms of the tools we're using as seen in this demo and why is it useful. So the first one first would be a default tool. So this one, no A2A, no MCP yet. Let's say I just want to get a simple context on Google search towards my AI agent. So I can create an agent with the Google, like putting the default, the vanilla Google search tool, right, that's already available in ADK. I don't have to build a Google search MCP server. I can just connect the Google search tool directly to my agent, and it should give me a result like this. All right, so you can see over here. So I already created this output before, and I've selected, you can see over here, this is the Google search agent. And then I'll just ask it like a very simple question. And then it will use the Google search results to give me, what's being found on Google search today. So you can see over here, this is essentially based off the different search terms it used, right? That you can click and see where they get the results from. All right. The deeper behind the scenes, right? You can actually create, like if you look into the custom response, right? For this tool itself, you can actually see inside, right, the metadata that returns pertaining to some of this. The metadata itself will indicate what they use within the Google search tool to render this responses over here. So you can actually go dive in deeper if you want based on response to understand some of those results here. All right, so that's using the default Google search tool. Okay, going back to the slides itself. So, well, let's say if the default tools, vanilla tools are not good enough. So as mentioned just now, right, maybe we want to use something like MCP instead. And this is something we already run through via this lab. Okay, so essentially, you all should have been able to get something like this as mentioned earlier on. So if let's say I'm trying to get some form of like a response directly from the agent linked to some sort of MCP server, like in this case, the currency server, I should be able to pass in a query and get some sort of response directly from the MCP server's context. Okay, but here's where it gets the most interesting. Let's say you have one single agent that provides for data like this currency data, and you get like a list of this different data. What if I want to get this data in a format that I can read in a much more easier way rather than this? So going back to the slides again, you can see over here that I have other agents that I can use to create charts. So what if I do something like this instead? I have a master agent that is linked via A2A to multiple of these sub-agents. So one sub-agent is to get the currency data, and one sub-agent is to create the charts. So using this master agent, I should be able to tie in, because I'm connected to all these sub-agents via A2A, right? I should be able to connect their outputs together and be able to create, some sort of like a final useful output for my users. Okay, so by providing the right query to this master agent and the right tools that they are connected to behind the scene, they will give me the right output automatically. Okay, so you can see over here. So this is the final output connecting all of these different agents together. I pass it a query to get some sort of that currency data, and then I indicate it to chart it up with some clear instructions on how to do so. Okay, and by doing that, they gave me the right chart link over here. Okay, and the final output, something like this. Wow, getting better. Okay, anyway, currency shenanigans aside, yeah, so essentially being able to make use of A2A as well as MCP, right, to your advantage to be able to put all of these agents goodies together, right, and give you like, a really good final agent that you can design, right, for your end users. Okay, and going back to the slides. So I think with that, we've sort of come to the end of the workshop over here. I'm just going to display this over here. If you need the slides, go for the slides again. Let me just copy, I think earlier on I think I put in the slides link as well. So let me just paste it here again for everyone's benefit. Yeah. But yeah, I think we're kind of over time already. I'm not sure if you have time for questions, but I'm happy to stay in this session for a while, maybe for another 10 to 15 more minutes for folks who have issues running a workshop earlier lah. Yeah. But if not, yeah, I hope you all have
Yeah.
enjoyed this session today. And yeah,
Excuse me.
let me know if you have any other
I
questions.
I have a problem with the test run the agent to agent server.
Wait, hold on. I
Yeah,
think to the organizer,
I have
sorry, give me a
I
moment. I think for the organizer, do y'all need to do anything in this workshop? Like, I don't know if y'all want to take a photo or something.
Yeah. I mean, we better take a photo before everybody leave. Then
Yeah.
after that, we can have a small Q&A in case.
Okay. Folks, please don't jump off first. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'll leave it to the organizers. However you want to do this.
Okay. So thank you so much, Mr. Wei Yuan, for the amazing session and your time. I'm really, really sorry for yesterday situation, and I'm really glad that everybody was able to join today. And for today's task, before we take a picture, for today's task, please redo the thing what Mr. Wei Yuan did, and make sure to post in LinkedIn, and also make sure to tag Mr. Wei Yuan and yeah, whatever you learned and whatever you did. So yeah, before we close up, let's make a photography session. So I would like to request everyone to open their camera. Yeah. Yeah, we do our GDG sign. Okay, so count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, another one. 3, 2, 1. Okay, amazing. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. So yeah,
I have a question, is it okay, about the quest?
yeah. I mean, if Mr. Wei Yuan is free and everybody else want to leave, can leave already, no problem. We can have a Q&A small one.
No, about the quest that we have to submit today.
Sorry.
About the quest that we have to submit today.
Yes.
Regarding that, do we have to show that about the exchange with our master agent through the currency agent? Like say, like in the chat box, we can just like say like what's the currency of USD to MYR and the currency agent's output or something else. And we have
Just now, Mr. Wei Yuan showed his own demo, right? So overall, each session, every single mentor or speaker have their own demo. But then again, we suggest you to explore new things if possible. So you can show that you learned something and you can implement that for your future projects. So yeah, we do say that please try to redo the whole thing so you understand what it is. Then try to tweak a bit here and there and make your own version of something.
If I can help suggest a few.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Please.
Just to help, I think Gabriel's question as well. Yeah, I think I definitely agree with sentiments that shared over here. Try to add in what's that, a bit of a flavor, like change the instructions. Like just now, of course, I put it as a joke in terms of the trying with a different currency. Like the default instructions is Canadian dollars to USD or euros to USD, right? But you can try with Malaysian ringgit with other currencies as well. Again, the joke is I know Malaysian ringgit is getting very strong, which is a good thing. And yeah, I mean, try with the 80K over here, or the other one is basically I think step number 8 also mentions about trying the test script for A2A. You can also run with that as well, change a bit of the request in there, see if you can get a slightly different response. And then I think the main thing here is as long as you use this to illustrate that you understand how A2A works and MCP, how it works, right? By connecting to your agent to a right server. I think that's the most important part.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a problem with the testing part. It gives me still the same error, the runtime error. So I tried different.
Okay, is it the
Shall can others leave?
The same run
Yeah,
attempted
definitely.
to
Everybody can leave now. No problem.
Yeah.
attempted
Thank you.
to
Thank you. It's
exit
nice.
attempted to exit cancel scope in a different task than it was entered in. That's the error.
wait, sorry, is it the
Even
same? It's the same
even
error?
after yeah, the same error. Even after I exit the web page,
Uh-huh.
web server, it's still the same error.
Okay. Okay. Maybe if I can make a request, shall we stop the recording first, then, so I can ask him to share his screen? Because I might feel a little bit bad if he shares screen while this goes up in the recording.